Good evening, Walmart shoppers. This is a repair video for the Reel Wobble issue on a Tascam TSR-8 reel-to-reel tape machine. The original bushings that sit behind the reel table were made from graphite, and after several years they will crack and cause the tape and the reels sort of make this motion right here. So both reel tables will need to have this repair made, but you only need to make this repair once for the life of the machine, and then it should last once you put better bushings in there. So these two were sourced from eBay. This one came from the Dominican Republic, and it is a direct replacement that was machined out of aluminum. I'm not sure where it came from. It's definitely aftermarket. It was $171. And at the time of this video, December 12th, 2022, it is the only bushing I could find on the entire planet. This is the second bushing right here, and I'd like to thank TascamNinja.com for letting me know that you can use the bushing out of a TIAC A3340 machine. You just have to cut down this lip and match the height of the original TSR-8 bushing, which I will cover in a few minutes. First, remove the pinch roller, which is on the right side of the heads. It's the roller with the black rubber, and this top comes off. Just slides right up. Remove the two tension rollers on the far left and far right side of the machine. To do that, the top simply unscrews. Okay, and when you lift this up, be careful with this black washer. It needs to go back over the shaft when you put this back on. Remove the two plastic hub adapters. There's a Phillips screw at the center, and underneath that there's a plastic washer. The assembly lifts up, and then you have a plastic washer that goes down on the reel table. You'll want to do that on both sides of the machine. To remove or replace the head cover, there's two Phillips screws underneath the cover, and then there's two hex screws, 2mm hex screws at the bottom. To remove or replace the front cover panel, there's 6 screws, and they use a 2mm hex key down the sides of the unit. Once the front panel is removed, you'll need to remove the brake band. There's a screw here, and a clip, a retaining clip on this pin, and then the brake band will come up off the table reel. Be sure and take photos before you start the process so you can mark down the space here and the space right here when you put it back together. Otherwise, you'll need special equipment to set the brake tension. I'm doing this repair one reel at a time, so I only have to remove one brake band at a time. And this is the original reel table I have not removed yet. Right now I'm using the millimeter ruler to get the height of the reel table. So placing the ruler down on the base plate, on the raised section of the base plate underneath the reel table, you want to set the reel table height to, it's about 32 millimeters. 32 millimeters from the bottom of the ruler to where the metal meets the rubber. Once you have the brake band removed, the reel table will spin freely, and you can see the issue. It takes some practice, but you'll want to feed the 3mm hex key underneath the reel table and try to remove the two hex screws that are on the bushing. If the reel table is stuck on the motor shaft, you'll have to gently pry it up, move the reel and pry it up underneath the bushing. I use a body clip. This is for automobiles, to remove body panel clips. This tool you can get on Amazon probably for a few dollars, and this should slowly pry up. I was able to pry this reel table off without destroying the original bushing. I've got the reel table on the vise and I backed out the screws just a little bit. I'm going to try to take off this bushing without destroying it. We'll see what happens. It's painfully obvious that this bushing is not going to come out in one piece, so do whatever it is you need to do to remove it. I'm going to try pliers. This thing does not want to come out of here. So for this one, I ultimately had to Dremel cut off the shaft and then turn the reel table, set it on the vise, and use a nail punch with a hammer through the screw holes and beat out the remainder of the bottom bushing, and it ends up, it'll break up into pieces. This is what it's going to look like, but ultimately that is what I had to do to get this one out of here. Let's see. This is the last little piece that should come out. And that's it. It's ready to put the new bushing in. So the height of the original bushing is about 26.5 millimeters. If you're going to cut down one of the A3340 bushings, it should be about that high. And if you don't have a caliper to measure this, a regular millimeter ruler should be fine. Basically, you're just going to cut that top lip off, and it's almost perfectly sized to match into this other machine. So for those of you who will be cutting down a bushing from a different machine, the height of the original bushing is around 26.6 millimeters, give or take. Anywhere in that range should work fine. To cut down the bushing, you'll need a vise, a hacksaw, and a flat file. Those are the only three things you need. And just set the bushing into the vise and just cut that lip off. All right, we're all the way through. We'll just take off this last little piece and then file this down to 26.6 millimeters. We're at about 27.5 millimeters after taking the very top lip off. So we'll need to file down about 1 millimeter. Okay, I have it filed down to about 26.7 millimeters. That's going to be close enough. Okay, so the 3340 bushing on the right has been cut down to match the height of the original TSR-8 bushing. And these two bushings are now ready to be installed on the machine. So you'll want to position the bushing against the back of the reel table and line up those 3 holes to the 3 holes on the front. And then you'll want to thread the screws into the bushing. Make sure that they're all started. Once you have them threaded, then you can use a vise or pliers to seat this bushing down. It's going to be pressed in. Place the reel table down on your vise, and then with a this is just a ratchet extension. You could probably use a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, or something like that that's you have lying around, and a rubber mallet, and you just want to just work your way around the bushing and make sure it's fully seated down. into the reel table, and you could, let's see, continue to screw in the screws as it goes down, and then this is close to finished here. Let's see that. So try to position the table on the vise so that the screws aren't touching the sides. And then once the screws are flush with the bottom of the bushing like this, you're pretty much done. It's ready to go back in the machine. Once you have the reel table removed, clean up any metal shavings that are left over from the old bushing. Next, you want to place the reel table back on the motor shaft. The motor shaft has a flat section called a D-cut, and one of the two set screws on the back of the bushing need to be positioned directly over that cut. That's to prevent the reel table from coming back off. You'll want to raise the reel table to that 32 millimeter height, and then fasten both of those two set screws. The set screws can be difficult to access, so if you have any problems, angle the flat part of the motor shaft at a 45-degree angle, and then using a modified Allen wrench, drop the reel table in. So that that set screw lines up with the flat part. And you may need a second person to hold the ruler while you fasten the first set screw. I have the reel table set to 32 millimeters, and this set screw on the flat part of the motor shaft is finger tight. It takes patience to find the set screws using this method, but I found it easier to use this modified Allen wrench, and then torque down the screw using the needle nose at the very end.
The reel table's back on and it's looking pretty good.
For the A3340 bushing that was cut down to fit the original, it drops right into the reel table without any issue. The base is a little bit thicker than the original, so the screws will not go all the way to the bottom. Just fasten those 3 screws the best you can. And the 2 set screws that go against the shaft of the motor use a smaller hex key, and they're a little bit different, but it's the same concept. So this guy's almost ready to go back into the machine. All right, so the procedure for the 3340 bushing side is the same, except you use a 2 millimeter hex key Allen wrench, and find the flat part of the motor shaft, drop this down, set the height to 32 millimeters, and tighten it up. Return reel side is complete, and here's the after, looking pretty good. I'll move on to putting the brake band back on.
Next, put the brake band back on. There's 1 screw here, 1 screw right here, and a retaining clip that goes on top of this right here. It looks like that. That's the return reel. I haven't done yet, but and this just sets right underneath right here.
The brake bands are back on, and this last little retaining clip, just use needle nose pliers and clip it together. together like this. There it is. Everything is back together and we are running a test, and it is way better than it was. Things running really, really smoothly. So thanks for watching. I hope this helps somebody out there. Have a good one.